for that good singing. Praise God for that. This morning I'm going to preach a subject on a sermon which is, I hope will be comforting to each one of us. I'm going to be preaching on things that happen in life which are disastrous and tragic, and you think to yourself, well, why would anything ever happen like that? And then there are those that will say, why would God let a thing like that happen? There are others who are lost and they really don't like the Lord Jesus. They don't like church. They don't like anything good or righteous. And they're always the kind of people that never darken the door of the church. They never really involve God in their life in any way whatsoever. But if something bad happens, they're the first ones who will blame it on God. And say, why did God let this happen to me? I'm not going to believe in a God that allows bad things to happen. Well, friends, I'm afraid that we are really stuck in a dilemma, because we do live in a world where bad things do happen. I think if we analyze it theologically, some things bad that happen are to be blamed on Satan. Some things that happen that are very bad are to be blamed on human beings and those people that cause bad things to happen. And I also believe that since Satan can do nothing without God's permission, that God himself sometimes allows bad things to happen for a purpose, a good and righteous purpose in the end. The worst thing that has ever happened in the history of the world was that God's only Son came and was beaten and bludgeoned and blooded and placed on the cross to die. And through that bad thing that happened, the greatest thing in all of history has come from that, the salvation of lost sinners. Praise God's holy name for that. This morning the sermon title is Broken Vessels or Broken Lives, picking up the pieces. It's like Humpty Dumpty when he fell off the wall. He had a great fall, and then someone came along and they picked up the pieces. And that's what the sermon's about today. I'm going to use some graphic illustrations because I want to get my point across. I feel kind of like a movie precursor that comes on the screen and says, take all the children and make them leave the room. Some of these things I'm going to talk about, a few of them, because I want to make the point that there are terrible, terrible things that happen to human beings sometimes. And I want to try to analyze maybe why they happen, and I also want to give comfort to those who belong to Christ, that when people are wounded and people have fear, that Jesus is there to make us whole, to restore us, and to give us peace and rest. I'm going to get the worst one over with first, I think. When I was it's amazing how when you go through life, there are certain things that happen to you that you never forget. There are probably millions of things that happen to all of us during life. And we forget about them, we never remember them again. But there's some things that are so traumatic that you never, ever forget. And if you will pardon me this morning, I want to address some of those things and try to make some sense out of them. When I was in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, Brandon Elementary School in Greenville, South Carolina, I had two horrible things happen to me. Actually, there were three. The first one is that there was this girl named Martha Tannery. She had brown eyes, brown hair, and she was not ugly. And I figured that out even in the 7th grade, someone like Brother Howard. But I remember that a horrible thing happened. I was so interested in her, but then I found out she really liked somebody else. That was bad enough. But then there was a guy, I even remember the street that this happened on in the 6th or 7th grade. Somebody was swinging a baseball bat playing ball, and somehow the guy was catching without a mask, and the bat hit him right in the mouth and knocked all of his teeth right out. And I witnessed that. And it was a horrible, horrible thing. And I just could never get that out of my mind. And my first reaction was, it could have been me. I was very close to the situation. I was playing softball. I used to play ball, all sports, and I used to bunt a lot. I was pretty good at bunting the ball. And I bunted the ball, and there was this great big guy, about 6'4", 240 pounds, playing first base. And I was running up the first baseline, and as I got to a certain point, evidently he was coming down to field the ball. And I did not see what happened, but all of a sudden I went black, and everything just kind of stopped, and I felt this horrible impact on my shoulder, and I felt myself being thrown over to the right side of the first baseline and round up in the dirt. And then I looked up at this guy, and he had come down and ran into me, and my shoulder had hit him right in the mouth. And I looked up at him, and he was standing there, and he just fell backwards right on the ground. And they had to take him to the hospital. Well, I felt terrible about it. I couldn't help it. It wasn't my fault. But I just really got sick at my stomach. And I didn't even finish the game. I just went and sat on the bench, and somebody else took my place. But that was a horrible, horrible thing that happened. And then, this past 2 weeks, there's been several things that have come to our attention as a church, and some of us in the church, of people that we know that have had terrible things happen to them. I know that Henrietta told us about the fact that Wade and Renee, her son and daughter-in-law, they live in England now at the Air Force Base. And they had to come back to the States because Renee's father had been talking about coming to Belize and doing caving and maybe some climbing on the cliffs, and we were excited about that. And Renee received a call and said that her father had been in an accident, a horrible accident. And I don't know all the details, but I do think I have this straight that he lost his arm in the accident. And you know, when something happens to somebody that you know or you're mildly acquainted with, it affects you in a very serious way. And the first thing I thought, I said, well, you know, here he was thinking about coming to Belize and climbing mountains and cliffs, and now he's lost his arm, and I know that's probably the least of his worries. But a tragic, tragic thing happened. She's been there with him, and Wade's been there, been able to see Elizabeth as well. And I think that all this week, we've had several things like that happen in the last 3 weeks that directly affected us in a way, and I have not been able to get it off my mind. It's just, it impacted me and caused me to realize how much we should be thankful for just to have the members of our body intact. We got to Belize, and Ken Barber, our missionary friend in Belmopan, who we spent time with, told us in a sermon that his pastor, Jackson Boyette, who's been pastoring for 30, 40 years, was going down the road 2 or 3 weeks ago with his wife. And they had a head-on collision with another vehicle. and it killed both of them instantly. His pastor, dead, sniffed out in the moment. And you think, well, he's a pastor, he's serving the Lord. Why did that happen to him? That impacted me greatly. Then we just see so many things that happen that are so bad. And as we see these things, we wonder why they happen, or what the purpose is. Can any good come out of it? I'm going to tell you about Pastor Roy Hargrave at the end of the service, who I saw on the internet last night. He's preaching a conference at Grace Life Church in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, church believes like we do. And he told a horrendous story of something that happened to him, how God had taken it and made good of it. It blessed my heart. I'm going to share that with you a little bit later. Well, this morning I want us to look at Job and see what Job has to say about some of these things that happen that we don't understand. And let me preface my remarks this morning by saying that I am not implying that God made these things happen to these people. I'm not implying that Satan had a part in it. I'm not implying that it was their fault. I'm just simply saying that the events that I just described, I really have no idea why they happened. There's some things in theology which are relegated to the secret counsel of God as to why He allows certain things to happen, and we may never know why some things happen. God knows, we don't know. We won't go into those areas this morning. But in Job, the 4th chapter, I want us to read some things that Job said about the same type situations. In the 4th chapter, beginning in verse 7, he says, "Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of His nostrils are they consumed," talking about the wicked that hate God. "The roaring lion and the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perisheth for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing secretly brought to me, and my ear received a little thereof." And listen to this terrifying description of life that he's about to present, or parts of life. 13, "In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. And then a spirit passed before my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form of it. An image was before mine eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying, Shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Sobering words from the lips of Job. There are things in this life which are absolutely terrifying. They are terrible things that happen. And only good things that happen. Then Job continues in the 5th chapter, the 18th verse, he says, For he maketh sore and bindeth up. He woundeth and his hands make whole. Talking about God. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. Yea, in 7 there shall be no evil to touch thee. So he gives them hope. He says, yes, God woundeth, but he also makes whole. He makes whole, in particular, those that belong to him and those that love him and those that serve Him. Then we're looking at the book of Deuteronomy, if you want to turn there. Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter. Verse 39, just from scriptural evidences of being wounded and bad things happening to people. In Deuteronomy 32, verse 39, we read the following words. See now that I am He, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. He wounds and He heals. The same repetition again. Sometimes there are physical wounds that people have to endure. Sometimes there are physical wounds that lost people have to endure. Sometimes there are physical wounds that saved people have to endure. And sometimes there are emotional wounds that all these people have to endure. Sometimes there are even spiritual wounds that Christians have to endure and have to put up with. Sometimes there's sickness. Sometimes there's illness. Sometimes there's economic uncertainty and those kind of trials that we have to go through. And I think one of the purposes of the sermon this morning will be to point out that when we go through these trials and the vessels and the pieces are broken and we're wounded, there is a difference in how a lost person will be affected and respond, and how Christians to respond to these wounds. Right now we're thinking about the wounds and the bad things that happen. In the book of Jeremiah, the 15th chapter, we look at another verse that describes these type of things. Jeremiah, the 15th chapter, verse 18. Why is my pain perpetual, and my wound incurable? The same word, wound, which refuseth to be healed. Wilt thou be altogether unto me as a liar, and as waters that fail? Listen, Jeremiah speaks here of pain that is perpetual, and the wound which is incurable, and it seems to never be healed. And there seems to be even a questioning spirit in the spirit of Jeremiah as you read this verse. The Apostle Paul had thorn in the flesh. He prayed for God 3 times and it had been removed, and God never removed it. It was perpetual. It lasted. It was incurable. But God had it there for a reason, to deal with the Apostle Paul. I think there are things in our life that we probably have had to deal with all of our life, and they're still there. There's still a wound, and they're still not healed. Isaiah gives us an answer to us, we who are Christians, in the 53rd chapter. If you want to turn there. Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, in verse 5, we read this. 53:5. But He was wounded for our transgressions, He was bruised for our iniquities, and the chastisement of our peace was upon Him. And with His stripes we're healed. You know, a comforting verse. Jesus Himself, the same word is used upon Jesus that we just read in the other instances. He was wounded. He was wounded just like we are wounded. And He was wounded for us, that we might be able to be healed. I've read several verses this morning which have talked about being wounded, and they've also talked about being healed in the same verse. There is a hope for Christians that those who are lost do not have. There is a hope that when God allows we who are His to be wounded, there are promises here that imply that if it's His will, there can also come healing along with that wounding. But I believe that every time that we are wounded in whatever situation, as a Christian, God will take that wound and He will use it for His glory, and He will use it for our good, and He will bless us with it, and He will teach us with it, and He will be able to deliver us in one way or another. Even if someone kills us, we will be delivered, and we will be taken to heaven to be with Jesus. He was wounded for our transgressions. And then with the wound comes fear, usually. When a person is wounded, when a person has a tragic accident, there must be an overwhelming sense of fear that comes upon that person. Remember, I was driving on the right-hand side seat of a car with Houston Brown, my friend. We were about 18 years old, and in Green. Driving along, minding our business. Had 2 or 3 people in the back seat, wasn't doing anything wrong. And all of a sudden, I never saw this coming. I felt this horrible impact come right into the right door that I was sitting on. It knocked me over on Houston's side of the car. He lost control of the car, swerved uncontrollably, and we were broadside, and we never saw it coming. And I know that probably that has happened to some of you. Thank God no one was hurt and I wasn't really injured really bad. But you never know when something terrible is going to happen. As we drove back to the airport from Belize a couple of weeks ago, we saw a truck teetered on the edge of a hill on the Hummingbird Highway and carried oranges. The back of the truck was leaning down, the cab was bent and still on the road. Oranges were everywhere. And almost every time we drive down that road, we see cars or trucks which have run off the road. This is a dangerous world, a world filled with sin. And when trouble comes and wounds occur, usually fear occurs. In Joshua, the 8th chapter, as we look, and we think of fear this morning. I'm not going to be talking about lost people in these particular verses, but those who are saved. In Joshua 8:1, he says this, "And the Lord said unto Joshua," this is coming from the mouth of God Himself, "Fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise and go up to Ai, and see, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land." He says, fear not. Do not be dismayed because of the enemy. When you see these horrible, tragic things I'm talking about this morning happen, fear not. Even though the world seems to be in chaos, God is still on His throne. Our sovereign God is still in control of His universe. And we that belong to Him should not fear. In Psalms, the 23rd chapter, verse 4, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, and thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." Verses for believers. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. If you're in the valley of the shadow of death is around you, and you can almost visibly see the shadow, and you can almost visibly feel that death is near. Here's what He said, "I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." Beloved, He really is. God is with us if we belong to Him. He's with us every minute. He's with us every night. No matter how much fear the devil comes and puts in our mind, we know if we wake up in fear, if we go to bed in fear, and we cry out to God, we know that He will hear us, and we know He's there with us. I found when the devil puts fear in my heart, and usually it's about future events, not past events, that it's real. Fear is really real. And when that happens to me, I have to fight it. I have to pray and pray and pray and ask God to take it away. People can say one little word sometimes, one little sentence with a negative connotation, and it'll make chills run up down your spine because of the negative attitude of what they say. Be careful what you say. It affects other people. And the devil will take that and he will attack us with it. When we're physically wounded, when we're emotionally fearful, when we're mentally fearful, we need to just go to the Lord and think about this verse. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. He is with us. And then in verse, we see in chapter 56 of the book of Psalms, beginning with verse 1. Be merciful unto me, O God, for man shall swallow me up. He fighting daily oppresseth me. Mine enemies will daily swallow me up. For they be many that fight against me, O thou most high. What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. In God I will praise his word. In God I have put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do to me. We really maybe need to repeat that prayer a lot. I need not fear what flesh can do to me. And sometimes it's our own flesh. It's our own flesh that attacks us. But usually it's the enemies of God or Satan. And David, you think about this. I don't believe a person has to be ashamed of being afraid. They may need to understand how to best handle it. But the Marines and some of the military folks, Leland tells us, use fear as a method and a means of motivation to take that fear and use it to be a better warrior. Or it can be debilitating and destroy a person. David had to deal with fear. David was one of the greatest warriors that ever lived. He won victory after victory after victory. He was out day after day swinging a sword against enemies and having enemies all around him in chaos with swords and spears and blood and death. And you never knew from which direction a spear or a sword might come in order to kill him. And he was in the midst of the battle constantly. But while he was in the battle, it didn't seem like he was fearful. It seems that when he got away from the battle and got alone like you and I do, then the fear came over him. Then he realized the fear. Then he became paranoid. Then he was watching the towers to see who was on the tower. He was watching all the places in the marketplace to see which people were going to try to overthrow his throne and kill him. He had fear. So I don't think we should be ashamed to have fear. We just need to learn how to control it and how to go to God and ask for his help and his deliverance. Isaiah, the 4th chapter, Isaiah, the 41st chapter, 41. We read in verse 10, more words of comfort about being wounded and being fearful. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will hold thee and help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with my right hand of my righteousness. Behold, all they that were licensed and incensed against thee shall be ashamed and confounded. They shall be as nothing, and they that strive with thee shall perish. Thou shalt seek them and shall not find them. Even them that continue with thee, they that war against thee shall be nothing, and as a thing of naught. For I, the Lord thy God, will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help you. Fear not, I will help you. Words from Isaiah. All these guys we're talking about having fear and being wounded are the great patriarchs that wrote the Bible. They're some of the greatest men of God. They're some of the men that's been closer to God than anybody in history, and yet they've been wounded. They've been wounded physically, they've been wounded emotionally, they've been wounded financially, they've been wounded spiritually, and they do fear. You think Ezekiel felt when he was there in the place, and all the horrible things came, and the storms and the earthquakes. And I think it was Isaiah even who said, God wasn't in the storm, He wasn't in the earthquake, He wasn't in the lightning, He wasn't in the thunder, but God appeared to me in a still, small voice. God came to him in a peaceful, comforting, rescuing attitude, not in all the chaos. That's what we should search for. 2 Timothy, the first chapter, tells us how we should handle fear. 2 Timothy, the first chapter, verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear. Listen to this verse. I think everyone in our church, including me, ought to memorize this verse. This is a great verse for all of us. 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear. Fear is not of God. God's not given us the spirit of fear. And every time I begin to get paranoid, a little worried about something that might happen, I have to remember this, that fear does not come from God, so it must come from God's enemy. It comes from Satan. I'm not saying that God will not allow fear to come upon us and Satan to make us fear in order to use it to motivate us or do something He wants to do. He's done that with me many times. And when it says that the Father will chastise us, I've come to be very familiar with that verse over the years, even when I was a teenager, that if I was doing wrong and I knew that I was doing wrong, I'm not sure if there's such a thing as an accidental sin. I kind of think we know when we all sin, and we all have sinned, and we all do sin, including Paul. When that sin, and we know that we're doing it, and when I knew that I was doing it, I came to expect that it wasn't too long that God's chastising hand would not fall upon me. And I was kind of, I was kind of cool when I was little. I said, well, I got away with that when I look over my shoulder for about a day, and I said, well, nothing, the other foot hadn't dropped yet, so I think I'll do it again. I'll do another one. So I do another sin. And I waited a day or two, and I didn't get no chastisement. I said, well, I'm doing pretty good. I think I'll do a bigger sin. So then I do a bigger sin, as temptation came, and all of a sudden, the big foot dropped. Bam! And that quit my sinning for a while. I had to say, God, you're going to chastise me when I do wrong. And how many times do we do that? All of us, every single one of us. But this is a beautiful verse. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear. But remember that. But what has He given us? Of power and of love and of a sound mind. If you have a spirit of fear, it is not from God. But what comes from God is when you have a spirit of spiritual power from the Holy Spirit. When you have a spirit of love, and when you have a sound mind, and you're not paranoid, and you're using your mind in concert with God's will. Spirit of love. Sometimes when people become empowered and they get to feeling pretty confident in themselves, and another Christian will do something wrong, sometimes they can have a temptation to be really hard on that Christian. Maybe too hard. Discipline's a good thing. You know, we need that. But when you become arrogant about it, and you become empowered to think that you're better than other sinners, and you can really browbeat them and do it yourself, and not let the church and the Holy Spirit do it, then that's a dangerous thing, because the next thing you know, you're liable to commit a sin, and God's liable to be pretty hard on you. I think the thing that keeps me in check as much as anything is in every situation, if I think about what I'm doing to someone else, I keep in the back of my mind that what's going to happen to me if I do wrong to somebody else. It's a preventive thought that comes into my mind. The power of love and of a sound mind. 1 John 4:18 says this: there is no fear in love. Think about that. There is no fear in love. That would take a lot of thinking to be able to really dig out all the secret meanings of that statement. If we love, there should be no fear. If you love a friend, you should not fear that friend, and that friend should not fear you. If a friend loves you, you should not fear that friend, and that friend should not fear you. That's a good verse. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear has torment, and he that feareth is not made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. Well, what about wounds? What about tragedies? What about fear? What happens to these things if you're a Christian? Or what can happen to these things if you are a Christian? The Bible says, we've already mentioned, that God can make us whole, that he can restore to us the pieces that have been broken, and he can give us rest. You know, broken vessels, broken lives can be put back together by God. God has to go around and sometimes pick up the pieces. We've been broken, we've been shattered, we've got pieces everywhere. Our lives are a mess. And when a person is hit by a car or has a terrible tragedy and is physically injured, you literally have to go and pick up the pieces. But God is in the mending business. God is in the picking up the pieces business. He can go and he can pick up the pieces of a person's shattered life, and he can put them back together again. And believe you me, it'll be 1,000,000 times better than putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. Because Humpty Dumpty is not God. He's not infinite. He's not omniscient. He's not all-powerful. He's just Humpty Dumpty. How do we get made whole? Very quickly, Job, 5th chapter, verse 18. We'll go by these real quick. The book of Job, as we find again the 5th chapter, verse 18. We've already read it one time. We're going to read it again. It says, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7. There shall be no evil touch thee. In Matthew the 9th chapter, beginning with verse 20, we read these words. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years, came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch the garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. Listen, beloved. We can be made whole by the Lord Jesus. We get out of the pieces picked up. The broken vessels and the broken lives can be put back together. And we can be whole again. The woman was whole because she saw Jesus and she touched merely the hem of his garment. And he made her whole. He felt when the power went out of him. And beloved, if you will go to Jesus when your life has problems or you have accidents, you've been physically injured or any other of a multitude of reasons, and you will go to him, all you've got to do is touch the hem of his garment and say, Lord, remember me. I'm here. I need your help. I love you. Help me, Lord Jesus. Help me. And he's there for you. He will help in his own time. He will help in his own way. But he's there because he loves us, and we're his brothers, and we're his sisters. We need to cry out for Jesus, for mercy. In Acts, the 9th chapter, the 34th verse, this is the last verse I'll read. 9th chapter of Acts, the 34th verse. And Peter said unto him, Ananias, Jesus Christ maketh thee W-H-O-L-E. He maketh thee whole. The wounds come, the broken vessels come, the dismembered arms come, the concussions come, cancers come, everything comes, and it causes fear. But Jesus can make us whole again. I looked up the verses in the concordance. The words restore and rest. Jesus can restore our problems, restore us to health. He can also give us rest. The lost world can never expect to find rest and peace because they will not come to Jesus. Thank God that we've got Jesus. I'm going to close this. We met, and forgive me again for being graphic, but this is what's on my heart to say today, and I'm going to say it. When we were in Belize, we were directly impacted again by a terrible tragedy. And Retta and Glenn can verify what I'm about to say. Glenn preached one Sunday at Ken Barber's church. I preached the other Sunday. There was a guy there named Kim. We don't even remember exactly what he looked like, his wife. He used to be in one of the most wealthy families in Belize. He got into all kinds of troubles, various things. I don't understand it all, but he lost everything. And he started coming to Ken Barber's church, and Ken began to minister to him. The first Sunday he was there, Ken said that the night before, Kim's little daughter, and he attributed it to Satan, that's whatever. But the little daughter took the little brother's finger and cut it almost completely off his thumb. He didn't know whether it was the devil influencing her or whether there's various opinions, and it really doesn't matter. But listen to what has happened next, and it may make you stop to think. We ran into him the next day or two, and the woman was carrying the little boy's finger around his yard. I don't know if she was able to try to go to the hospital and get it replaced or whatever. We don't know what their capabilities are medically. But then I got an email this week after we got back from Belize. And it was an email that Ken Barber was sending out to all of his prayer supporters, including us. And he said this: That's why I'm preaching this morning. It's impacted me all week. It just seems like it hasn't stopped, the tragedies. He said that the same man, Kim, and his wife and his child, I don't understand they said they were on a scooter. I don't know how they all got on there. I'm like questioning that. But a van went out of control and ran into them on the scooter. And this young man, who used to be one of the wealthiest people in Belize, and listen, who we just preached to twice 2 weeks before. We saw him. We shook his hand. We touched his hand. We touched his arm. We looked into his eyes. We knew him. And you know what happened? We'll never shake that hand again. Because in the wreck, he lost his arm. We'll never look into one of his eyes again. Because in the wreck, he lost one of his eyes. His wife had both legs fractured. And the child had head trauma and lots of things wrong. And man, I'm telling you, when you just met somebody and you preach the gospel to somebody, you know when they're lost, and something like this happens, you are impacted by it. It's been on my mind all week, and I want us to join together as a church and pray earnestly for these people and their recovery. I don't even know if they have insurance in Belize. I don't know how he's going to supply for his family with one leg gone and one eye gone. We don't know for sure if they're going to live. And the worst thing is, we don't know for sure if they know Jesus. That's the biggest thing we need to pray for. And pray that one of those sermons, or kid sermons, that God, through the Holy Spirit, will take those words and use them to touch Kim's heart and his wife. And then last night I watched a part of the conference, Shoals Baptist Church in Alabama. Pastor Roy Hargrave was preaching. He's a pastor in Ormond Beach, Florida. He believes like us. He's a great man of God. And he was in the middle of telling a story, and this is the last thing I'll say. He was telling a story about when he first got to this church years ago, and there was some big controversy about the school. They were not doing spiritual things, and he was trying to close the school, and if they were not corrected and do what's right and do it the Lord's way, and I got in the middle of that. And anyway, so they had a big rally in the park, and they were chanting his name to get rid of him and to leave. And the church members were out there, they were chanting his name, they were trying to get him out. And he went through hell for a long period of time, dealing with all the problems, trying to implement change in the new church. Finally, he said, I just was fed up. I'd had enough. I said, Lord, I want out of here. Send me to a church somewhere else. I just can't take it anymore. So he got a call from Tabernacle Baptist Church in a little town in Georgia. They said, we're sending a pulpit committee to hear you preach, Brother Roy. And they came, and his church members saw the pulpit committee. They always, 5 or 6 of them, sit on the front row, all dressed up. So it's pretty obvious they're a pulpit committee. And so, if a pulpit committee ever comes and tries to take me out of this place, I want you men to go to the back door and kick them right back out in the parking lot, because I don't want to go nowhere. I'm where I want to be. But, you know, they came, and they talked to him, and as they were talking to him after church, he said, with all the pressure that happened, his brain, his mind, just his head exploded. So I had an aneurysm of the brain, just too much pressure. And they took him to the hospital, they rushed him there. They began to examine him, they examined him twice. They said that blood was all in his brain. They didn't know whether he was going to live or die. And he was thinking to himself that he just might die. And the doctor was in his church, came and said, well, let's run one more test. And they ran one more test. And there was no sign of an aneurysm. There was no blood. And miraculously, somehow, it disappeared. Still took him 6 months to recover from it. He went back home. Here he is. His church hates him. They're going to run him off. He asked his wife something to the effect of, well, what about the pulpit committee? And she said, are you nuts? You think they want a pastor who just had an aneurysm of the brain? And he said, well, I guess not. And so he sat there trying to figure out what to do in the hospital bed. And you know what happened? When the church found out that night in the hospital, when he got clearance, almost the whole church that hated him came to the hospital and rushed in and tried to get into his room. They caused such a big chaotic stir that the hospital had to run them off and make them leave. But they saw their pastor in trouble. They saw him in fear. They saw him near death. And all of a sudden, all those little petty things didn't matter anymore. He was wounded. He was wounded to the point of death. But God had a reason for his aneurysm, and God had a reason for him being wounded, because he used that wound, beloved, to take the people of that church and break their heart and cause them to fall in love with their pastor and come to his rescue. That's one of the most beautiful stories I've heard in a long time. And they came and they loved him. God took a physical wound and tragedy and he used it for a glorious good. They used to have a couple of acres, I think he said. Now they've got something like, I think he said 1,300 acres of land for the church. They have, ever since that day, that church has been united and loving each other and loving their pastor. God took a wound and he made it whole. God took a broken vessel. God took a broken life, a broken brain, and he used it to put not only his pieces back together, but he put them back together an entire church in his majesty and his glory. I pray that with Kim, God will do something glorious. I pray that with Renee's father, God will do something glorious. I pray that for all the others we've mentioned this morning, God will take the broken pieces and he'll put them back together. To God be the glory. Brother Glenn, would you lead us in a closing prayer?
Father,